Me? Hi, this is Sarah Smith, and you are on Iconoclasting. So, this is the podcast I have to talk to founders, women, non-traditional pathways. That's what we're covering, especially women in business, non-binary, non-gender descriptive folks. And so, yeah, we're here today. We're going to talk with Darell Brown. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. And Darell, your company is ProProject Bookkeeping.
Yes.
Tell us tell us everything about yourself, and then we'll go into like more of the questions and how you got to where you are.
So my name is Darell Brown, founder of ProProject Bookkeeping, founded in 2017 after 1 year of freelancing and about a decade of experience before that. ProProject Bookkeeping provides virtual bookkeeping and project accounting for project-based businesses. So essentially, I help owners connect the dots between their cash flow, their profitability, and their financial workflow.
So when you say like project based businesses, what can you like give me an example of what that is?
Yeah. So that could be consultants. They may be working on multiple kind of engagements at once. They need someone to give them the overall financials for the company, of course, but they also want to know how each of those engagements is doing. So in addition to the general accounting and profit and loss statements, I also give them project profit and loss statements and organize the information in that way so they know how each of their revenue streams is doing. So say, for instance, if that was a retail company, I would tell them how it would show them how a particular product line is doing. For an event company, kind of similar, they're going to know how each of their events is performing financially and so on and so forth, depending on what exactly your industry is.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you're coming up on, and we were just talking about this. You're coming up on 10 years. You've technically been doing the thing for like 10 years, but your company's birthday, as it were, is coming up 10 years next year.
Hmm.
How did you get at, I mean, to have a business that's been running for 9 or 10 years is a feat, right? And I think as of my latest numbers, and they might be outdated, but I think half the businesses that are started fail within the first year, and then half of those numbers fail within the first 2 to 3.
Mm.
So to have that going, how did you get here? What keeps you going? Has it been just like up and up, straight shot, you're doing great the entire time, or has it been like adjustments have been made throughout the entire
I
10
mean,
years?
I can tell you when I initially started with the kind of freelance portion in 2016, I really thought that I was going to just be working with small mom and pops.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'll just have like a few dozen of those and like that'll be the business and that's that. So literally like my first client was like a branding kind of marketing agency that was in their third year and they were, grossing millions at that point. And in my mind, anyone that's grossing millions is of course going to have like an accounting team and lots of resources to help them figure out their books. And like, I was just mind blown. Like, no, they don't. So, like, through that first client, that was just like a real kind of awakening for me. Through that client, I met a really like cool CPA. I worked with him for a bit. He referred a couple of clients to me, and I also met a CFO through them, worked with them with a couple of clients as well. And every client I work with, I make sure to kind of become a part of their ecosystem. I like to think of myself as a member of their team, a partner, in their operation. So I really try to utilize that. And I think when people see that, the different CPAs, CFOs I work with, they're usually more than happy to refer work to me. So without even thinking about it, I started actually building, a bit of a roster of clients. And I realized, okay, I'm getting way too many clients at this point. This is while I'm still freelancing and I'm being pulled in like so many different directions. I'm like, yeah, this is not going to be sustainable at that point. For the first about 6 months or so, I was working on basically an hourly basis, which again was just not sustainable. So at that point, I switched from hourly to more of a package kind of system. I had to let go of one or two clients that were just a little bit too much of a drain on my time and timing. And then from there, towards the end of that year, I also hired a business coach to help me
Mm.
kind of conceptualize how I wanted to work going forward so that I wasn't I wasn't draining myself. I wasn't basically burning a candle at both ends. And that's where ProProject Bookkeeping came from. So I initially founded the company at the very start of 2017. At that point, it was literally just my name, LLC.
Hmm.
And then through working with the coach, which I think I ended up working with her through like maybe the middle of that year, that's where Pro Project Bookkeeping was kind of born. And it helps me to figure out kind of systems and workflows and to focus on a certain segment of clients where I'm not really like stressing myself out. I'm not stretching my resources too thin.
That's such a good point too, because I like, and I'm guilty of this. I have two small kids. I've got a husband. I'm doing an online MBA. I've got a business, and so like, why not, right? I'm also on a board for something I'm really passionate about. So, I mean, all of these are so important to me. And so, how are you making sure you're not dropping balls constantly? And that's the whole like prioritization, making sure you understand your values and being sure that as a founder, you have that set up
Hmm.
and clearly outlined. I just finished Build the Damn Thing by Catherine Finney, and I don't know if you've read it, but it's so good. And she talks a lot about that too.
Build the damn thing. I'll look it up, definitely.
And it's fabulous. She talks about like being aware of your values so that as you're building, you're keeping that in mind. And he
Hmm.
talked about like letting go of some clients that didn't fit like your values, right? Or
Exactly.
like, yeah,
Exactly.
so that's really cool. And so when you're like, did you always want to be this accounting pro project, or is it like, was it like, oh, I'll just go do accounting? And because I feel like when I meet accountants, they have like very odd backstories that don't always match what you think.
So I actually went to school for, I went to college for media arts.
Tell me, what is that? What does that mean?
At this point in my life, I kind of have no idea what it means. I learned, different facets of media, everything from graphic design to video production. And then my major focus within that was actually music production, like music engineering. We were just talking about, I actually ended up
Yeah,
going, studied abroad in London where I did like a focus on audio engineering.
that's so
So did
cool.
that. Yeah, did that for a couple of years. I also minored in business as well. Had my first kind of internships in my third year of college and kind of realized, yeah, I don't like this very much. So at that point, I focused more on media business and trying to figure out how to like enter it more so from like a business side of things. So fast forward a couple of years out of college, I actually ended up working for a movie studio. And that's where I spent, the next 7.5 odd years. The movie studio is a multi-company environment. So just being there, I worked for a movie studio, a real estate development company, a lighting design firm, and there's probably one or two other kinds of companies that I'm forgetting. So going from that, I worked one more company for a little over a year. And I think this is when the bug kind of hit in my head where I'm like, I went to some kind of small business. I was doing something and they were having an issue with QuickBooks. And I'm like, hey, if you just do this, you can do this. And they're like, hey, do you know how to use QuickBooks? I'm like, well, yeah, this is what I do for a living. Like, oh my God, can you help me with this? So like 2 hours later, I end up giving them like a little bit of a crash course in QuickBooks. Whatever I went there to purchase, they basically gave to me for free as a thank you. And that was like the first kind of like, like stone where, maybe I could do this and actually help out, like these small business owners with stuff like this because she had been scratching her brain for years with how to do these simple tasks. And I showed her how to do it essentially in 2 hours. And she was able to duplicate what I showed her. So she was just in shock. So every time I would go back, she like, oh, thank you so much. It's been so much easier since you showed me how to do that. And I'm like, wow, I mean, was it really that helpful? I'm like, okay. So that was the first inkling that, this is something that I could potentially do on my own. And at the point, God, when was it? 2016, or I would say probably the end of 2015. I'm like, you know what? I think I really truly do want to give this a shot. And that's when I found that first initial client. Had no idea really how that was going to go. And within those first 3 months, I managed to get three more clients. And then I also ended up taking on a part-time role. But this part-time role came with just like so many perks that I feel to some degree also helped me build out my business. So just like everything that happened, and I feel like in the end of 2015 through 2016, I just took as a tool to figure out how to build, what to do, what not to do, and just carried it forward.
I have so many questions because, like, one, how did you even have the foresight to understand that you needed a business coach? But before I even go in there, do you come from like a family of entrepreneurs?
No,
No? Okay.
no. My mom has done some entrepreneurial things, like she's a, like a real estate
Yeah.
agent. So she's done some things there and she's had small businesses here and there.
Hmm.
So she definitely has like that entrepreneurial spirit. But from a family of entrepreneurs, definitely not.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like I just hustled my way through college and everything. And so, like, yes, founderhood, entrepreneurship makes sense for me, I think, but I didn't come from that either.
Mm,
And yeah, because I thought like you just go to college, you get a degree, you come out and get a job. But I went to college during the Great Recession, right?
hmm hmm
And so it was like, so you come out and you wait tables until something else happens.
And that was interesting for me. I was a part of that too. I think I had possibly had just started working at the movie studio when it was maybe a year after I started working where that really became like a thing, the Great Recession. And I'm seeing a lot of people lose
Hmm.
their jobs. And I was, relatively comfortable during that time. So it's
Yeah.
interesting how a lot of the financial hiccups over the years, I was relatively in like a really good space at the time that a lot of those things were going on.
Yeah. And I mean, look, people need bookkeepers. Money is not the thing that they want to mess around with,
hmm
and they
hmm
need accounting help. So that's like one of the things. And especially if you're looking from like a VC backed area, one of the first things I've heard a lot of VCs will invest in is either a fractional CFO or a full-time CFO to
hmm
help them with their finances because you cannot muck about with that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's really, really important. And so it not coming from like a family of entrepreneurs, how did you realize that you needed a business coach and had that foresight?
Just honestly just going through the motions of freelancing and,
Hmm.
at first I'm taking it all as it comes. Any person that essentially just needs bookkeeping services, I'm taking on, but I'm not really understanding what their needs are until I'm in the thick of it and then realizing, wow, like I'm being pulled in so many different directions. I mean, I think I'm thankful that my first client is probably still like the best client I've ever had. But, very near to that, I had a client that was probably, I don't want to call them the worst, but it was just like one of the toughest clients I ever had. Unfortunately, their books were in just a really bad state, and working to try and fix it just uncovered more issues that needed to be addressed. And I ultimately, didn't end on bad terms or anything like that. But I had to tell them, I really think you need someone, perhaps you need an accounting firm and particularly like an auditor to really go and look through your books because me just trying to do a simple cleanup, it's unearthing a lot of issues.
Yeah.
An important part of that is, I just started using contracts with that second client. And I was really worried that I didn't have the right like termination clause in there for the contract. So I'm like looking through it. And I'm like, oh, thank God I put a termination clause in there. Jeez. Because if
Yes.
not, that could have been a pretty difficult client to remove myself from. So I was so happy I put that in the contract. So like a few things like that made me go, I need to talk to a coach. I really need to systematize this so I'm not putting myself in a situation that could be an issue later on.
That's such a good point too, of like this building the systems that make your business better.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of what I do. And I'm very big on like systems thinking. But a lot of people, and like I'm finding with a lot of founders, is they're either hearing that voice in their head and they're just kind of saying, no, not yet, and they're not willing to invest in it right now, or they're like not trusting their gut on it. So that's really cool to see like how you were like, yes, I'm going through these motions, but
Hmm.
You're getting there, right?
Yeah, that first year was a lot of trial and error to see what worked and what didn't. And I actually had my first clients that year. I had a lot of them for a number of years. Like some of them I
Hmm.
still say were like the best clients I ever had. I think literally the last client I got that year, I just stopped working with last year. And it was only because they had, at that point, they had added like so many companies to that initial company that I had to just kind of sit them aside one day and say, hey, I think it's best that you really do get either an employee in house that could
Hmm.
really, on more of a 9 to 5, really look through your books, or work with an accounting firm that can dedicate maybe a few more resources to what your needs are. But even that, just making sure I'm having those honest conversations with clients about what their needs are.
Well, and that's also incredible too, because I try and tell, like when I work with my clients, I want them to know I'm not trying to be here forever
Mm,
because I want to help you grow and move on. We do slightly different things, right? Like I am not a numbers gal
mhm,
necessarily, but I want to make sure that they've got what they need. And so we're not working on the same problems over and over.
exactly.
'Cause it's like, sure, I'll be there forever if you want me to, but not working on the same stuff.
Yeah, I have one client, I swear, like every holiday around Christmas break, I take a I take a little time off because I know January is gonna be crazy, and his, like, parting words every Christmas is, "Don't leave. Don't leave.
That's
Make sure you
so
come back in
funny.
January." I'm like, "I'm coming back in January, like, where do you think
Yeah.
I'm gonna go?" Like.
Well, and that's amazing to be able to build like that kind of raving fan base, really,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Like that's
exactly.
incredible, right? Some people have it, some people don't.
Mhm,
And my family was like very blue collar, very like you go to school, you do this, you do this,
mhm, mhm,
So that's really cool to see that and just have like that awareness that you have and like the ability to create those raving fans. That's
mhm,
really cool and not something that is always inherent in skill sets. Some people have
mm.
to have that work at growing that. But if you were going to talk to somebody, and I'm sure somebody listening to this is either thinking about going into founding a company or entrepreneurship, what would you say to them if they were thinking about this?
I'd say, a bit of a caveat is that I did this back in 2016, where I think, the economy was a little better, and I gave myself a 6-month runway that if something didn't go well, then within 6 months, I would start reapplying to jobs. And, back then you could get a job within a couple of weeks to like maybe a month
Mhm.
or so. And I know that's not necessarily the case right now, but I would definitely say embrace that non traditional path. You may not be able to leave that job just yet because you don't know what's coming next, but what can you do before you leave that job to start building what you want that next path of yours to be, and start working on that? I What's great now, which didn't exist when I first came out, is like the virtual arena right now, to be able to attend virtual meetings and network and to have like virtual coffee dates that didn't exist for me back in 2016. So when I went out, I didn't really even have a network, which I'm just kind of shocked now how I was able to meet people and get clients without really having any of this. But you do have an opportunity to kind of get your name out there, to talk to different people, to workshop different things. And I would also say embrace whatever technology you can to help you do that as well. It can save you a lot of time. It can help you with a lot of trial and error. So embrace the non-traditional path.
I love that. And yeah, I was the entire time we've been talking, I've been thinking 2016 was way before any kind of LLMs came out.
Mm,
And
mm.
yeah, so that's also another way is like, yeah, it's great. It's great to see. But thank you so much, Darrell, for being on this. And this has
You're welcome.
been
Thank you.
an incredible conversation. I loved it. So, Darrell, can you tell us where can we find you? And I'll be thinking show notes.
ProProjectBooks.com. You can also, of course, find me on LinkedIn. My name is up there. So DarellBrown.com. Just do a search and I'll pop up. Pro Project Bookkeeping also has its own LinkedIn page. So you can definitely find me there. Instagram at Pro Project Books. Any of those arenas, feel free. If you go directly to the website and you do want to just message me, there's a contact form on the bottom of every page. So if you want to send me a note, feel free to do it there.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Darrell. This was wonderful. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.